Chapter 4. The trail wasn't much of a trail. It was barely wide enough for one four-wheeler. Dennis shot right by it and was almost back to the runway when he realized his error. He reversed course, drove slower, and found it the second time. Dennis went first. He kept the speed low, not wanting to drive off a cliff or into a stream full of crocs. Did they have crocs on Pacific Islands? He should have asked. Behind him, Skip was yelling questions. Dennis couldn't hear him over the engine noise and ignored them. The canopy was so thick, the light went from afternoon to dusk in 50 yards. It was disconcerting and more than a little spooky. Dennis considered calling the whole thing off, then told himself not to be a chicken. The trail forked. Dennis stopped. Skip pulled up beside him and killed his engine. Left or right? Skip asked. Both paths looked the same. Green, dark, narrow. The left fork climbed slightly. The right one dropped and curved out of sight. Left, Dennis said. Why not right? Dennis pulled a coin out of his pocket and flipped it in the air. Call it, he said. Heads, Skip said. Dennis caught the coin and put it on the back of his other hand. They both looked. It was tails. Left, Dennis said. The trail climbed for another quarter-mile, then leveled off and widened into something that had once been a clearing. The jungle was reclaiming it. Dennis stopped the four-wheeler and got off. The bunker sat at the far end of the clearing, half buried in the hillside. It was concrete. Vines covered most of it. A rusted ventilation pipe stuck out of the top like a periscope. The entrance was a steel door set into the concrete face, and the door was shut. Holy shit, Skip said. Dennis walked up to it. The door was heavy-gauge steel, pitted with rust but intact. A padlock hung from a hasp. The lock was old. Japanese characters were stamped into the body of it. Dennis grabbed the lock and pulled. It held. He pulled harder. Nothing. We need something heavy, Dennis said, or we could leave it alone. Dennis looked at him. Carole's dad said to stay away from the ruins, Skip said. He wanted a professional to look at them first. We're just going to look, Dennis said. Skip didn't need much persuasion. He started to look for something to break the lock. Dennis did the same. Dennis found a large rock with an edge. Let's try this, he said. Dennis beat the lock with the rock. Nothing happened. He stopped to catch his breath. You're not hitting it right, Skip said. Dennis handed Skip the rock. Skip lined up the sharp edge of the rock with the lock. He eyed it carefully and took a swing. Nothing. Ha, Dennis said. Skip repeated the process. The lock popped open on the second attempt. Ha, Skip said, tossing the rock aside. Good job, Dennis said. Dennis pulled the door. It resisted, then gave with a groan. Beyond the door was darkness. We need light, Dennis said. The saddlebags on the four-wheelers were stocked. Whoever maintained the property had packed them with basic supplies. Dennis found 2 flashlights. He took both flashlights and handed one to Skip. They stood at the open door. Dennis clicked on his flashlight and stepped through. He had expected a concrete box with maybe a table and some old equipment. A bunker. This place was much larger. The flashlight beam hit a corridor, and it stretched straight ahead for at least 40 feet before it turned. The walls were concrete, the ceiling low enough that Dennis had to duck his head slightly. Pipes ran along the ceiling, bolted in place with brackets that had gone orange with rust. The floor was poured concrete, cracked in places, and there was a drain every 10 feet or so. This is bigger than I thought, Skip said. They followed the corridor to the turn. It opened into a room. A metal desk sat against one wall, and on the desk was a typewriter with Japanese characters on the keys. Papers were scattered across the surface. A chair was pushed back from the desk at an angle, as if someone had stood up in a hurry and never came back. Against the opposite wall was a cot with a wool blanket folded at the foot. A pair of boots sat underneath it. A canteen hung from a nail in the wall. A calendar was pinned above the desk. The last page showing was August 1945. Dennis, nobody's been in here, Skip said. Dennis ran his flashlight across the room. The dust on the desk was thick and undisturbed. The papers hadn't been touched. The chair hadn't been moved. Everything was exactly where it had been left 80 years ago. I thought Carole said these places were checked after the war, Skip said. Maybe they missed this place. Skip was quiet for a moment. That makes us the first people in here since the Japanese left. That's what it looks like. Skip moved his flashlight to a wooden rack on the wall near the cot. He saw 3 hooks. 2 were empty. The third held a leather holster. He walked over and pulled the holster off the hook. He opened the flap and slid out a pistol. It was compact, blued steel, with a grip that curved at the bottom. A Japanese military sidearm. A Nambu, Dennis thought, though he wasn't sure of the model. Skip held it in his palm and looked at it. "I'm keeping this," Skip said. "It's been sitting here for 80 years. It probably doesn't fire." "I'm still keeping it." Skip put the pistol back in the holster and tucked the holster into the waistband of his shorts. Dennis swept his flashlight along the walls. In the far corner of the room, a flag hung from 2 nails. It was faded and dusty, but the design was unmistakable. A red circle at the center with rays extending to the edges. Rising sun. Dennis walked over and lifted it off the nails carefully. The fabric was stiff, but it held together. He folded it and put it under his arm. "Souvenir," he said. A second corridor led out of the room deeper into the hillside. They followed it. The corridor sloped downward, not steeply, but enough that Dennis could feel the grade in his knees. They were going underground. The pipes along the ceiling multiplied. Thicker ones joined the originals. Some of them had valves. Labels in Japanese were stenciled on the walls at intervals. The corridor ended at another door, steel like the first one but heavier. This one had a wheel lock like a hatch on a ship. "Hold this," Dennis said, passing Skip the flag. Dennis grabbed the wheel and turned. It didn't move. He put both hands on it and threw his weight into it. Nothing. "Seized," he said. "Let me help," Skip said. He set his flashlight and the flag on the floor and grabbed the wheel next to Dennis. They pulled together. Dennis felt something give, a tiny shift, and then the wheel broke free with a sound like a bone cracking. They spun it, the bolts retracted, and the door swung inward. The room beyond was a lab. Metal tables lined both walls, bolted to the floor. Glass beakers sat in wooden racks on the tables, some of them still holding liquid that had gone brown and cloudy. Cabinets with glass fronts stood against the back wall, and Dennis could see jars inside them, jars with things in them. Instruments were laid out on one of the tables as if someone had been in the middle of a procedure. Scalpels, clamps, things Dennis didn't have names for, all of it rusted. "What the hell were they doing down here?" Skip asked. Dennis didn't answer. He moved through the lab slowly, keeping his flashlight low. The floor had stains on it, dark stains in front of the tables, drains in the floor, same as the corridor above. At the back of the lab was another door. This one was lighter, wood, not steel. It had a simple latch. Dennis lifted the latch and pushed. The door opened into a smaller room, maybe 10 by 12. In the center of the room, raised on a concrete platform about waist high, was a glass enclosure, and it was rectangular, roughly 7 feet long and 3 feet wide, with a metal frame holding the glass panels together. The seams were sealed with something black and hard, a lid set on top, glass like the sides, held down by clamps at each corner. It looked like a coffin. There was something inside it.